Now I want to bring in our legal panel to discuss Bill Gavin, former assistant director of the FBI in New York, currently Integras intelligence senior consultant, Fox News legal analyst Mercedes Cohen, also a criminal defense attorney. Mercedes, I want to start with you. Of these two, the one that has the greatest implication for President Trump?
Well, interesting you should ask that. Certainly Michael Cohen, because that admission in open court that at the direction of the candidate, he paid to these two individuals, obviously one being Stormy Daniels, and of course he pled guilty to campaign finance violations directly relating to those payments, in which he admitted in open court, he's under oath, that he made those payments at the direction of the candidate. He didn't mention the name, but obviously it is President Trump. And it influenced the 2016 election. So that's certainly very problematic.
It was an attempt to influence the election. I mean, this is what I was confused when they had the press conference. That is he guilty of making the payments, or was he guilty of lying about the reimbursement for those payments to what the district attorney called a quote-unquote sham and an invoice from 2017? This is the part I'm not clear on. Right. Is it guilty that they made payments, or is it guilty because he inappropriately filed the wrong paperwork to get reimbursed?
Well, I mean, we don't have the instrument. We don't have the documents in front of us. So that'll be published at some later point. But what the prosecutor said, he's talking specifically about the payments being made for there to be an influence of the 2016 election. That's presumably, we'll have to see when we see the instrument itself, how the allocution, which is what I'm referring to, how it's actually spelled out. But up until now, according to the description by the prosecutor, it certainly seems to be centered around the payments being made and the influence of the 2016 election.
President Trump on his way to West Virginia, but before, actually, when he landed, he did speak with the press. And I just want to play some sound because he didn't mention Michael Cohen, but he spoke a lot about Paul Manafort. Let's take a listen.
It doesn't involve me, but I still feel, it's a very sad thing that happens. This has nothing to do with Russian collusion. This started as Russian collusion. This has absolutely nothing to do. This is a witch hunt, and it's a disgrace.
All right, Bill, what are the implications, particularly from the Manafort, 8 out of 18 guilty, 10 mistrial? Well, for both of these, what are the implications now for the Mueller investigation?
On both counts, I think there is some implication on his attorney Cohen, but on Manafort, not yet. But that's pretty close as well. He's guilty on 8 out of the 18. He's facing a total of 80 years out of all of those charges. And I agree with Mercedes. You have to see what's going to come from the documents themselves to see what the eventual conviction will be, or what the eventual sentences might be in these things. It's a very difficult set of circumstances. But the bottom line is here too, one never knows when the convictions and the sentences are handed out what the president is going to do in each one of these cases. Is he going to say all is forgiven?
We just have a statement out from Rudy Giuliani. Quote, there's no allegation of any wrongdoing against the president and the government's charges against Mr. Cohen. It is clear that, as the prosecution noted, Mr. Cohen's actions reflect a pattern of lies and dishonesty over a significant period of time. I mean, obviously throwing him completely under the bus while suggesting Paul Manafort's a good guy. It seems like we're zeroing in back again to Cohen and Bill, these payments, the reimbursement for these payments, and just, I guess, to what degree does that make President Trump, though, liable in any legal sense of the way, or the campaign?
I think probably, Charles, in this particular case, where Cohen said he made that payment to influence the candidate, that's very telling, and it's going to be very difficult to get out from underneath that. How that works out, as Mercedes says, when you look at the paper, what does that really mean? Did he make the payment for? But I think that's the most difficult of all the
right.
What happened in both courts today.
And Charles, if the prosecutor is going to ultimately look and try to look at Cohen and say we're going to use him as a cornerstone of our prosecution in the future, I think that's going to be pretty shaky ground, because we already know there's lots of inconsistent statements that Michael Cohen has made in the public realm. He said that that President Trump didn't know about the payments to Stormy Daniels. Then he 180 degreed and he said, oh, he did know about the payments to Stormy Daniels. So there's so many inconsistencies that any defense attorney can poke a lot of holes into the prosecution's case if the cornerstone of their prosecution is Michael Cohen.